We are always thrilled, by the way, to have any. By the way, this morning has been nothing but members of the reconstituted road gang, from Dean Croak to our good friends Jim and Joanne, and of course, regular recurring guest star on Washington Trucking Week, the guy who helps us wade through the swamp and figure out what's going on with the fat cats. Colin Long joins us, as he is wont to do. Sometimes, I'm sure sometimes he's like, oh God, why am I doing this again with this human being? But here he is. Colin Long, the Director of Government Affairs, has arrived on the scene. Good morning to you, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. You got me thinking about New Orleans food and some of my favorite things to eat when I'm down there. So thanks for that. I'll be hungry all morning.
Let me tell you, when you and Pew and the Rod come on down here, or just you, as a matter of fact, with the wife, we are so
Why them?
we are so close to Parkway Tavern. We are so close. To Mandina's. We are like within a hop, skip, and a jump of some of the best restaurants in the city of New Orleans. I don't think Madison took the job because she liked us. I think she looked around the block and went, wait a minute, Cafe Degas and Lola's are right down the block. I'm coming here. 5 coffee shops, by the way, all of them owned by private individuals, not like chains, surround this neighborhood too. So all kind with pastries, and a donut shop across the street. Come on down, Colin. We need you.
The last time I was in New Orleans, I had the best sandwich of my life, and it wasn't one of your traditional ones. It was over at Turkey and Wolf. Their collard green melt was just fantastic.
I've had it. Had it.
The list. I'll visit there when I'm back.
The burger there is pretty amazing too. By the way, that's a great burger.
What a cool spot.
When I take you to Mandina's, I took Tom Bray to Mandina's, and he said, "Oh my God," he said, "the plate is fried." I'm like, "You bet your ass it is, pal. You bet your ass it is." Of course, OOIDA.com. You can also go fight for truckers, fighting for truckers, all that groovy stuff. Good morning to you, man. A lot of stuff going on here, and people trying to convince. By the way, not just Democratic governors, but it turns out that Greg Abbott's got a little bit of trouble down in the Lone Star State. I was stunned by that. There are more undomiciled CDL holders in Texas than any place else in the country. I was stunned. I was genuinely stunned. But go on, talk about this a little bit. The whole thing, the whole package.
I think some truckers and some of our members are a bit stunned by what they're finding out as well. And we've been pushing for further oversight and maybe some reining in of the non-domiciled CDL program across the country. We've even questioned whether it's necessary. Is this even necessary? There's no driver shortage, so why are we facilitating the onboarding of non-domiciled drivers? We've leaned on the Trump administration to work with states to suspend the issuing of non-domiciled until we figure out, or until we gain a little bit more clarity about the program, what type of impact it's having, where these folks are being trained, what their safety outcomes are. And then we took the step more recently to send letters to 43 governors across the country asking them to suspend their state's issuing of non-domiciled CDLs. And I think you're onto something. If we're sending it to 43 states across the country, there's not 43 blue states across the country. There's 43 red and blue states across the country. So this isn't simply something that's being done in the Northeast or in Illinois or on the West Coast. I mean, there are some big offenders, and a lot of them are ruby red states. And I think once people appreciate the fact that this has been going on across the country and is starting to have real safety ramifications, I think we can start reining in these programs in states, and hopefully we have a good partner in the federal government to do so, which I frankly anticipate we will.
Yeah, and by the way, and we're saying this not to say gotcha to red states or to say, oh, look at the blue states, not as bad as we thought. Not at all, because you can also make an argument that part of the reason why we don't have as many undomiciled drivers in California is because there is a case to be made that there's lax enforcement over there. What's happening in Texas on the opposite side, it's not that there is over-enforcement, is that, as John Esparza pointed out, he said, there's not much the federal government can do when it's in-state, because Texas is a big place. Yeah. It's actually about 3 states. And the big problem what they have is a lot of those guys who are undomiciled aren't crossing state lines. And so Texas has got to clean that up as well, too. It's a real interesting problem. It's kind of fascinating what's been discovered here. As opposed to being a gotcha problem, it's a safety issue. At the end of the day, it
Yeah,
really is a safety
100%.
issue, isn't it?
It totally is. And I think the fact that the U.S. Department of Transportation is doing research into this, I think will shed even more light onto what's going on in states. We're slowly starting to figure it out. We're slowly starting to see numbers come in over the explosion of non-domiciled CDLs being issued in states. And I think we'll hopefully get a more clear idea of what's going on and how we can address it, because you're right, it's a safety concern. And if it's a safety concern, it should be a priority for oversight. And that's what we're trying to convince not only the federal government, who frankly is there, but a lot of these states that, hey, you've got a real problem of your own making. And in fairness, we don't even know necessarily who in these states are trying to acquire these drivers to work for them. And I think that would provide a lot of clarity as well, because, big carriers, truthfully, probably aren't the ones employing these guys. Our members haven't indicated they are, but based on the feedback we've received. So who is it, and what portions of the industry is it, and why do they feel like they need to reach out and bring on these non-domiciled CDL workers when there's plenty of Americans with CDLs who have to go through much more rigorous screening and vetting to get those jobs? So yeah, I think we'll learn more, and hopefully we'll have a better sense of how we can address the issue. But OOIDA's always said that we question, is the program even necessary? There's not a shortage of drivers, so if we're building these programs on that myth, then maybe we shouldn't even be having these programs in the first place.
Well, yeah, and it's really interesting too, because the economic case of it, which by the way, I will not make the economic case in the traditional way. I don't, like I said, this isn't a matter of if we got rid of all non-domiciled drivers tomorrow, it would not improve the rates. Here's where it does make a difference, though. When you have these guys, and by the way, we have a good regular caller on the show named Showtime, who is one of the quickest, and I agree with him to point out that one of the problems that is happening with non-domiciled drivers is that they are being hired by companies that evaporate in the blink of an eye. Here today,
Yes, definitely.
strip mall tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Some really bad actors around there. What they do, though, is that their lack of concern for safety, many of them are what I call, they drive and then they evaporate across whatever border they've come from, or they evaporate into communities. They cause accidents. Their inability to speak English creates a safety hazard on the road. Those accidents, in fact, become a black eye for the industry, and those accidents also raise insurance rates. And while it might not affect rates at the level people think it does affect insurance rates, which affects the bottom line. I think it's the best economic case that safety in regards to, and the other thing is, too, when you're competing against people who aren't playing by the rules, you have a terrible choice to make sometimes. Do I play by the rules? Now, your members and most of our listeners do exactly that. They continue to kind of fight the good fight. But it does create people having to make really tough choices that they shouldn't have to make. I'm sorry. Like I said, this is a much more complex issue than just go get them foreigners. And nobody's saying that, by the way. That's not what's happening here. And just want people to know that people outside of the industry, we don't want them thinking for a minute it's about getting people who look different or talk funny. Right? I mean, that's not what's happening here.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, there are drivers who were probably born abroad who are safer than drivers who learned in a state in the U.S. I mean, that should probably go without saying. But when you start to identify problems, safety problems, and trace the roots back, and you come to this program, and you realize, I mean, like I said, a lot of domestic drivers go through greater vetting from motor carriers and frankly, the issuers of the licenses than a lot of these non-domiciled CDL holders. That I think should alarm many Americans, especially folks within our industry who are trying to improve safety like OOIDA. So I think as awareness grows, people will start to take steps to remedy the problem, and we're trying to encourage them to do so. I mean, like I said, we sent letters to 43 governors and said, maybe you should suspend your programs until we get a better grasp on what's going on and how we can address the safety problems related to them. Hopefully we start to see some action. But we've also asked our members to reach out to their governors and encourage them to do so. And our members in those 43 states should have emails encouraging them to do so. And I highly recommend you reach out to your governors and let them know, because they need to hear from the experts, and the experts in these situations are always the safe drivers who are OOIDA members.
And by the way, it's a real opportunity too, because you guys have a lot of members who actually fall under this category, but also our friends in the Punjabi Trucking Association. When he came on the show on a couple of Mondays ago, the first thing he said, "What is your biggest concern?" Dave asked him. You know what he said? He goes, "People need to learn to speak English." You know, remember that a lot of people who came here, played by the rules, waited in line, got their green card, turned into citizens, have children driving trucks now, family traditions and all that stuff. They are equally committed to this game. And that's what's so encouraging about it. I mean, you know, although there was a funny moment, somebody said, man, you know, somebody actually told me privately, he speaks really good English. And I said, well, he better. India is the largest English speaking country in the whole world. But it was kind of a remarkable moment that he didn't even blink. It was the first thing he said. He said, if you can't read the sign and you're undomiciled, we got a problem. And you guys are keeping an eye on it. Go ahead.
I don't want to wade too far into these waters, but you know, we regularly interact with our members, and our members wouldn't be in business if they weren't driving at the safest level. So we treat them like the experts they are on safety. And you know, a lot of them come from abroad. They're not born here in the U.S. They've come to America as immigrants. They've started long, successful, and safe careers the right way in the U.S. And talking to a lot of them, English isn't their first language. Whether it be Spanish. I mean, I've talked to Bosnians, I've talked to Ukrainians, obviously Punjabis, and I've been surprised by the fact they said, yeah, you know, learning English and knowing English is an important part of promoting safety on our highways, and they're a lot more interested in ensuring every driver behind the wheel has taken the steps they have to learn the language and operate the safest levels than I anticipated, and I think than a lot of folks anticipated. So the folks out there who are saying, yeah, let's just get rid of the foreigners in general, I think are missing the bigger picture here, is that no, we're trying to get rid of the drivers, or I shouldn't even say get rid of the drivers. We're trying to prevent drivers who haven't been fully vetted and fully trained and capable of reading signs and communicating with law enforcement and first responders. We're not necessarily trying to get rid of them. We're trying to make sure that they aren't issued CDLs and they take the steps necessary to be a safe driver before they get behind the wheel. And I think oftentimes that's lost in this conversation, but it's an important note to make.
Yeah, it's not their first language, but it is the language they know very well on the first and last mile, and that's something important people need to remember. And so well said, Colin. Thank you so much. We're going to pivot here.
Well said. I didn't think it was.
No, you did great.
I felt like my grasp of the English language was failing me a little bit there. But,
no, you did fantastic, by the way. This is one of those areas where I actually think it's one of the trucking community's finest hours, because this could have easily spiraled into something xenophobic. And instead, and I'm talking to my listeners right now, I'm really proud, and not proud of them in that condescending way. I'm proud to know a lot of these men and women. They have handled themselves with grace and class, and made sure that people distinguish between, you know, not sounding like me and not understanding are not the same thing, and they've done a magnificent job of really distinguishing the two. And I'm really, like I said, proud to know a lot of these men and women, fine Americans all, many of them first generation, many of them been here since they landed on Plymouth Rock. And by the way, all of those people who are part of this American dream, who are fighting for a piece of the action, might get a piece of the action in the highway bill, but you guys have an outline of what's coming next, correct?
Yeah, U.S. Department of Transportation asked for our priorities, and you know, we handed them over on a silver platter. It didn't take much time to craft the 14-page letter we sent over there, because it's kind of a laundry list of things you've been hearing about for 5 years since the last highway bill was implemented. I think folks won't be surprised to know that top of our list is parking. We need safe parking. We need it across the country. And thankfully, I think a lot of what we're calling for is already on DOT's priority list for a highway bill. Not paid parking. Jeez, I can't believe I said that. free parking paid for by the government, paid for by truckers who are paying fees that go into the highway trust fund to pay for our infrastructure. That's top of the list. Things like preventing speed limiters from being imposed by future administrations. I think everyone knows the Trump administration's on board with that. Restroom access, broker transparency, cracking down on freight fraud, data queue reform. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's all of the hits that we've been playing over the last few years. But I think what's different this year is that we have a Department of Transportation who has prioritized truckers' needs. And hopefully that allows us to make this highway bill, which will be drafted by Congress, not the US DOT. But I think in having DOT work with a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, we have a real good opportunity to make this highway bill one of the most pro-trucker, if not the most pro-trucker in history. And that's our goal moving into the fall when this bill will start to take shape.
By the way, and you and I actually not only love, not only love policy, we love politics in regards to process. And I have to tell you, I've, as was the previous administration, I have had my criticisms of both them from a political and policy standpoint. I will tell you on this one, they have been not just every once in a while, what is it? Good politics actually makes good policy as well. This is one of those moments. This is really smart stuff because it really locks in a constituent voter for the whole party. You can point to that. That was what the battle of immigration was, why people always wanted to reform it. Was whoever got a chance to do that would actually be able to lay claim to those voters. This is a real attempt to kind of shore up some voting support here, along with doing right by these men and women. Fair?
Yeah, it's an argument we've been making for years. I mean, there's millions of professional truck drivers out there. Those are millions of voters. Show them some love. They'll return it. I mean, we've got districts in this country where there's 1,000 OOIDA members, and that can be a major voting block come election time in November. And I don't want to sound too transactional, but if you do represent 1,000 OOIDA members and countless more professional drivers, they are your constituency, and you do have to address their needs as a member of Congress or a senator. So I think we're finally starting to see a breakthrough. We've always had champions on the Hill. We've had US DOTs run with some of our priorities in the past, but I think we're seeing a much more holistic approach to that under this current Department of Transportation and under the current Republican leadership in Congress. And that's not to say Democrats aren't helping us on these issues too. I think we've done a really good job of promoting bipartisan policies. I mean, truck parking has broad bipartisan support where everyone stands to benefit from it, from the driving public, from truckers, and members of Congress who can very easily solve one of the biggest safety problems on our highways today and go home and take credit for it. So I think OOIDA has really done a good job of setting ourselves and our members up for success in this highway bill. But that said, I mean, we're always cautious. We're always nervous because we thought we were going to have a breakthrough in the last highway bill on our biggest issue of truck parking, and unfortunately we didn't get it. So we are aware and sober to the fact that just because we've done all we can to set up a very pro-trucker highway bill, it doesn't always work out that way, and the sausage making often leaves you kind of disappointed. But I really do think we are set up well to have a pro-trucker highway bill come out from Congress, whether it be first in the Senate or in the House, and having US DOT right there with us on a lot of these issues, I think will be very influential as that bill's crafted.
Hey guys, in just a little while here, we're going to change over that image on the YouTube page because we're going to roll out the red carpet for Lindsay Lawler. But in the meantime, we're talking to our good friend Colin Long, who is the Director of Government Affairs for OOIDA. Colin, have I ever told you my circus theory of a political coalition? Ever told you that?
No, maybe if you did, I need a reminder.
I think you'll like this.
But I don't think you did.
It's a three-part harmony. You need a roaring lion of a central issue, right at the center. You need a lion tamer who can actually control that big roaring issue. You need acrobats and gymnasts and jugglers who can kind of keep all the balls in the air, the money people who kind of make it all work. And then you need a clown car full of people who are absolutely zany and dedicated to the issue beyond belief. You put that coalition together and you can really make it work. And I feel like in regards to the highway bill, OOIDA's hit the sweet spot. You got a couple of roaring issues in the speed limiter and the truck parking stuff. You got all the folks who are working with you, both in OOIDA, not just the people who you work with on staff, but a lot of the members
Yeah,
too actually serve as boots on the
sure.
ground in the state. And then you got all those maniacs who call and bug the hell out of you guys on a regular basis and complain about everything about OOIDA, but nonetheless pay their dues and stay in the game. And that three-ring circus, I think, has kind of got you guys to this point. That's my little thing for you today. I was thinking about that
I
and
love it.
wanted to drop that on top of you. And we say again, the 1,000 voters in a district. What can folks do, by the way, while they're on the ground? Because we talked about this in regards to the English proficiency. I think part of the reason the ball has moved so much down the field is because cooler heads have prevailed, rather than it running into your office of your congressman and going, "Too many
Yeah,
foreigners in this country." People have been walking in
yeah.
saying, "Dude, I like all these new young people coming from other places, especially the ones that speak English." There's been a real kind of cooler heads prevailed. So how can members and people who should be members, how can they approach their congressman about, rather than getting on board for every single thing and trying to, outshout everybody? What's the way to really do this?
I think there's steps, and the first step is to just introduce yourself as a trucker and someone who has expertise in the industry, because chances are your lawmakers and their staff are not familiar with our industry. I mean, they don't know how trucking works. They don't know the complexity and the diversity, and they probably don't even know a lot of the major issues. I mean, we certainly try to make sure that happens here on Capitol Hill, but it doesn't mean it's guaranteed. And I think introducing yourself as a reliable resource on trucking opens a lot of doors, and then you can get down to the nitty-gritty and prioritize your issues. Don't come at them with 6 things to talk about. Start with 1 or 2. Start with parking. Start with whatever issue is of greatest interest to you, and just really take the time to explain how it affects you, and that will resonate. I guarantee it resonates. And then when there's a second issue that comes up, either because someone has presented to them, some outsider has presented it to them, or you've got a second issue that comes up, you already have that relationship established, and they already trust you as a reliable resource on trucking issues. And it goes from there. And, we've seen a lot of success on Capitol Hill built on the backs of specific drivers in congressional districts who just reach out to their lawmakers and get the ball rolling, and that ball becomes a snowball, and sooner or later, we've bills introduced, and bills that have a great chance of becoming law in the highway bill. And it's all because, one driver decided to take the bull by the horns and reach out to their lawmaker and develop a relationship. And that's frankly all it takes. I know you don't have a lot of time, and you trust us in Washington to be doing a lot of this work, but there's enough downtime, I think, in everyone's day for a 15-minute conversation with a congressional staffer to talk about trucking issues. And like I said, I mean, it pays dividends. You'll see the impact over time, and it really helps us in Washington keep us updated on these conversations you're having, so we can do the follow-up and really talk about details that truckers don't necessarily need to be talking about. That is why we get paid here in Washington. We come in and we do the more detailed work, and we speak the congressional language, and we don't need truckers doing that. We just need talking about the basics of trucking and introducing lawmakers to a lot of the policies that affect your lives.
What's really cool, by the way, I know you've had this happen, is I can't imagine this feeling. So let's just say that we have Joe from Lower Slobovia of OOIDA goes to a constituent services or goes to a town hall meeting, introduces himself to the congressman and to the staff. They just get to know him, and
Yeah,
he becomes their trucking guy. Then one day you're in Congress, you're in the halls of Congress trying to get the word out, and you see the congressman, and he's like, wait a minute, Colin, you're the organization that Joe from Lower Slobovia is a member of. I mean, you've had those
Yep.
moments, haven't you, where you've had people like,
Oh,
all the time, right?
we've had those moments recently. I'm not going to say who, but we were sitting down with a member of Congress, and you could see the light go off. Oh, this is the organization who represents Joe back home, and yeah, that connection was made, and that eureka moment is important, because they start to connect the dots, and they start to realize, oh yeah, Joe was talking to me about parking. Here's the organization who's leading that effort on Capitol Hill. What can I do to help? And pretty soon we have a new co-sponsor of the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, and That's how things happen. I mean, we're influential as a government affairs and advocacy team in Washington, but that pales in comparison to our members acting as constituents in a lot of these congressional districts and making the connection with their lawmakers. That's always going to be more powerful. I mean, don't get me wrong, we are certainly a necessary part of the equation, but a constituent reaching out to their lawmaker and making that connection is the most powerful way to start the ball rolling on real changes for truckers that benefit everybody in the industry, not just yourselves.
Thank you so much, Colin. Always enjoy the conversation. I look up and the clock has just evaporated, my brother. Get down to New Orleans soon. Please bring everybody you care about. We promise you it will be a Le Bon Temps Roulette sort of thing. And if you let me know when you're coming, I can make sure that Lindsay Lawler comes. You said Eureka, by the way. This is really cool. We actually, one of our guests in the second half of the show is the Eureka, folks. Wait, do I have Lindsay on? Can you hear Lindsay, Colin?
Lynn?
Hey, how's it going?
Yay.
I always want to talk to Colin. I'm just creeping in the background waiting for my in here. So here I am. Always love hearing your voice, Colin Long.
Thank you. That goes both ways.
Could you ask for anything more as you exit, as you shuffle off this radio coil? Colin Long is the Director of Government Affairs over at OOIDA and an original member of the reconstituted road gang, as are Trucker Bosun, Robert Henderson, Forod, Beach Bum, and all the other folks. Colin, go have the best of weekends, okay, my friend?
Thank you. You do the same.